Look, I'm with you guys. I would love nothing more than for Caylee Anthony's case to be reopened and for Casey Anthony to rot in prison as she deserves, but that's not going to happen. And here's why. The reason that's never going to happen is because the prosecution from the state of Florida, essentially the state of Florida, failed. They failed Caylee in the most spectacular of ways by completely and totally bungling both the case, the investigation, and the actual trial. Now, on the first level there, it's because prosecution didn't prove their case. They failed to prove their case. Baez got up there and he was able to sow reasonable doubt by saying, well, what if it wasn't, though? What if it wasn't? And prosecution failed to do things like bringing evidence to the table of, Casey Anthony's searches for foolproof suffocation. And within that, they screwed up in the way that they charged Casey. Because you see, not only did they not have all the evidence, but they charged her with first-degree murder, right? Which requires premeditation, which means that they have to prove that Casey at some point went, I'm going to kill this little girl, and then went through a thought process and a process to do it, right? They did that at the same time. They put manslaughter on there, right? Manslaughter of a child. They threw everything at the wall possible. And so when the prosecution threw everything, all the possible charges at Casey, and they didn't have the evidence to back it up, evidence which did exist that they just failed to collect. You can go and watch my other video on how they failed to do that. They essentially botched any chance of being able to retry her, right? Because when she's then found guilty of the she's found not guilty of the premeditated charge and then the manslaughter charge, they can't bring her back for that. They can't bring her back in for that. And that evidence search, that's like the biggest one. And even Baez, again, like I said in that other video, Baez wrote in his book, if the prosecution had presented the same evidence that they all had access to, Casey would have been under the jail. It would have been done. But because prosecution screwed up, and this is confirmed from the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Florida, this is all over the place. But essentially, they just didn't go through the evidence, right? The computers were searched. All the search history was put out there from Internet Explorer and Firefox, but the prosecution only asked for the search history from one of the browsers instead of looking at all of it. They only looked for certain words like chloroform instead of looking for things like suffocation. Prosecution failed. The prosecution failed, and that's why Casey Anthony is going to remain free until she does another crime, which is only a matter of time because she's a con artist and a grifter. So we'll never, unfortunately, get her in prison and get justice for Caylee, but it's only a matter of time until she steals the credit card of someone who comes to her for legal advice or something like that, because this is all she's ever done her whole life. And we'll see her again. And this time I think they'll do the OJ with her. They'll put her away that time. But yeah, Caylee Anthony not just failed by her family, also failed by the state of Florida. So good job, everybody.